Slay the Gods begins with a 10-year-old boy named Lin Qiye. Lin Qiye climbed up to the top of the roof to see the moon in its perfect state, but at that moment he could see a 6-winged entity, which gave him a terrifying look, a stare that burned his eyes and left him with damaged vision. In his case, Lin Qiye was found to have a severe mental disorder causing him to have frequent delusions, because he had an accident when he fell from the roof of his house. To calm the rebellious boy down, the doctors gave him tranquilizers. This was done in very high doses, and it took several years before he was finally discharged. It is said that the Earth was in an unreasonable state at the time, starting about 100 years ago with the appearance of a strange fog in Antarctica. The mysterious fog spread very quickly throughout the world. All the countries that were enveloped by the mysterious fog eventually fell, and no news was heard from them until now. In the end, the spread of the mist stopped at the border area of Daxia, a place that is considered to be the last civilization on Earth that still survives. It was a very strange phenomenon, but as time passed, the people of Daxia slowly began to forget about it, forgetting what the mist was really about. In the morning in Chang'an City, at a red light, a man wearing a blindfold was carrying vegetables and carrying a gallon of oil with a stick. The cane is supposed to be used to read the road because he is blind, which of course is Lin Qiye. The main character of the series, because Lin Qiye was using his cane to carry goods, a little girl next to him tried to help him cross the road. Instead of the child providing assistance, it was Lin Qiye who guided the child crossing the road as the leader. Although he can't see, he can now walk normally and avoid obstacles on the road without using the cane, and even dodge a basketball that almost hit him. Some people think that Lin Qiye is actually just pretending to be blind. Himself lived in a shabby-looking house along with a younger brother named Young Jin and an aunt who had taken care of him since childhood. He didn't know who his real parents was after shopping. Lin Qiye was slightly reprimanded by his aunt for buying expensive cooking oil, when there was still plenty of cheap oil he could buy and the change could be saved to pay for Lin Qiye's college tuition in the future. Young Jin comes over and gives his brother a pair of sunglasses which should be cooler than the eye patch. Even though Lin Qiye has been discharged from the psychiatric hospital, the doctors still continue to check on him regularly. In his room, Lin Qiye told Dr. Li that he could see but can't see in brightness. Dr. Li suddenly asked if Lin Qiye believed in the existence of gods in this world. But Lin Qiye's response was to shake his head. He felt that the angelic figure he had seen in the past was only due to the effect of hitting his head. The doctor continued to ask if Lin Qiye believed that there were figures known as mythological monsters in this world after the appearance of the mysterious fog. Appearance of the mysterious fog. There were indeed some reports stating about the appearance of mythological monsters, but it seems to be just a rumor. According to Lin Qiye, Lin Qiye no longer hallucinates, has no amnesia, no more headaches, and has a good quality of sleep. At the same time elsewhere, an underground tunnel worker was seen getting attacked by a mysterious creature. But before the worker would be threatened, there was a flying spear that landed on the creature, making it die first. It was flown by a girl who then entered the interior of the underground tunnel, and she began to carry out a massacre of the mythological monster creatures that attacked. And these creatures are known as ghost masks. There were also several other people who were assigned to different parts of the tunnel. For example, these 2 sword-wielding men who also seem to have a special ability. In addition to the spear girl and the 2 sword guys earlier, there's also the bespectacled girl and the sniper guy who get their respective parts in addition to the spear girl and the 2 sword guys. Suggesting that these are all from the same group, let's call them the Night Watchers. Behind the scenes, there is a person who might be the leader of the group and who controls the division of tasks so that the operation runs properly. In the group, there is also one more person. He is an uncle now. He is seen chasing several ghost masks who are trying to escape. The uncle was named Laya, and he was asked to complete his task before the ghost masks entered the sewer and headed towards the human living area. On the other hand, the two men with the swords had finished cleaning up, and one of them using his ability to make the workers who looked terrified forget everything that had happened there, while the other one told Mr. Jiao to immediately put up a barrier to prevent the monsters from escaping. Mr. Jaya didn't want to do it because it was too difficult for him in his current state. In the midst of his pursuit, Mr. Jiao was quite overwhelmed because he had to chase while climbing stairs while the monsters jumped easily from the side of the building. Not long after, a spear-wielding lady appeared and easily finished off the three monsters that Mr. Jiao was chasing. This showed that Mr. Jaya was the weakest among the group. At dinner time, Lin Qiye told his aunt and brother from the previous checkup. The doctor said that Lin Qiye could see and his head was no longer dizzy, so he could go back to school. Usually people like Lin Qiye were quite often bullied at school, so this made his aunt and brother were quite worried. But Lin Qiye here asks them not to worry. It's better if they just continue celebrating Lin Qiye's new life. Back in his room, while removing the blindfold, Lin Qiye apologized to his aunt and brother for lying. In fact, Lin Qiye's eyesight still hasn't improved, even though he's been trying to get used to using his eyes to see for the past few years. Lin Qiye actually has a lot of questions for the world, such as why the angelic figure he saw burned his eyes, until he was like now, and if his eyesight was exchanged by the perception ability he also got same years ago. Even if he closes his eyes, he can see everything so clearly. He also had another question about Dr. Li. Why did he ask questions that were kept from the previous medical? It seemed like he was not an ordinary doctor. The strangest thing of all was the dream. For the past few years, when Lin Qiye fell asleep, he would have dreams, where he was placed in the same location, a plain with endless fog, and there was a large building. That a very mysterious when he entered the dream, all he had to do was knock on the door of the huge building called the Asylum of the God, which again raised the question of whether there really was a god living inside the huge building, and whether the angel he saw was also inside. Although until now, the door he knocked on has not opened, Lai is very sure that all the questions and answers he wants are contained in the Asylum of God. The next day, Lin Qiye, a transfer student, entered the school. Some male students wondered how a blind person like Lin Qiye could go to school in such a normal place. After entering the classroom, instead of being bullied, Lin Qiye received a good welcome from some of his classmates. And it turns out that all of this is because of the aunt who had previously bribed the students with eggs and hoped that they would help Lin Qiye, who has a deficiency in vision. From here on, Lin Qiye promised to study hard to solve his problems, get a decent job, and finally be able to repay the aunt who had taken care of him all this time. Lin Qiye's friends who were quite helpful and responsible, as they also took the time to take Lin Qiye home, even though Lin Qiye didn't really need. Lin Qiye is also still not used to it, even though people have been treating him as an old man for a long time. Of the 5 students, one of them said goodbye because he just happened to be passing by on the same street. After the student said goodbye, strangeness began to appear. The situation was even more tense when a terrible sound came from the direction of the alley, coinciding with the appearance of a terrible figure which made you miss it because it had just preyed on the student who had just left. Elsewhere, Mr. Jiao, who was playing a game, suddenly received a call from his boss. The boss who said that there were several ghost masks appearing around the old city area. The ghost masks would pose a threat to civilians, which is why Mr. Jaya was asked to go to the scene as soon as possible and set up a barrier around the area. Lin's classmates show their true colors. One of them ran away and said, "Just leave the blind man there," while pushing Lin down. Lin Qiye also asked the frightened female student to run away immediately. Not far away, Mr. Jaya, who had arrived, erected some poles to activate the reddish barrier. It was a special barrier that only monsters could pass through while humans could go in and out. Mr. Jaya was asked to join the hunting team as soon as the barrier was completed. Lin Qiye, who tried to run away, ended up in a dead end, and he couldn't escape from the pack of monsters. That came to make an ambush. He could only survive with the stick he was carrying. In order to continue living his new life, Lin Qiye doesn't want to die here. While trying to fight back, Lin Qiye's blindfold fell off, leaving him with a split consciousness. He was defending against the Ghost Mask's attacks, and he was also knocking on the Asylum of the Gods at the same time. The situation was further aggravating when several ghost masks began to appear and attack, smashing Lynch's body on the ground. Finally, in his crisis, the gates of the Asylum of the God opened while Lin Qiye suddenly released a golden light from his eyes into the clouds, knocking away the ghost masks that were attacking his body. The packaging light could be witnessed with the naked eye by the residents. Mr. Jiao, who was on his way to his team's location, stopped on the way to see the origin of the light. Some people from the Night Watcher battle team asked if the phenomenon they were seeing was the birth of a new forbidden ruin. This forbidden ruins means the magical equipment that they use, guys, but it doesn't seem to be, because the power being radiated feels more like the divine power of the gods. And of course, the Night Watcher leader was convinced that it wasn't a forbidden ruin, but divine power. Fierce, holy, and powerful. This was a power that referred to the figure codenamed God, 003 King of Serap, or Archangel Michael. A glimmer of his power now resided in the body of a disciple who was once considered a madman, Lin Qiye. Inside the Asylum of the Gods, there are several rooms with doors that have symbols of the gods. Then the scene moved to Lin Qiye, who received the blessing of the divine eye, and now in his eyes the movements of the monsters that were previously fast became very slow. And there was a massacre using his staff. Mr. Jiao suddenly appeared. He showed his skills slashing the monster's body with his sword moves and easily decapitating it. The uncle here felt cool when it was just an assist kill. Mr. Jiao asks if he looked cool just now, and if Lin Qiye wanted to, he could also be cool like Mr. Jiao. If he followed him, Lai immediately ignored Mr. Jia and turned around to leave Mr. Jia, who was intending to recruit. And I will say thank you to those of you who have watched until now. Because this is the end of the video in place. If you like this series, comment and subscribe. Bye.